Welcome back to the Power Suite podcast. We are live, sort of, for another edition, a big week of college football. Some great games this weekend coming off our NFL. Fantastic job. Last week we had Sean Rhodes on the podcast, and he gave out a couple plays for the NFL that did well, and then he nailed it on Sunday, 3-0 NFL Game of the Month winner. Denver versus Chicago over. And I was a little concerned about Justin Fields and, his inabilities, but that cashed. And then he came back Monday, hit the deciding total. So great job by Sean and his handicapping on the NFL. I apologize for our college sides. Again, I can't say that. I'm getting sick of saying that, but I'm, because of these troubles, I had to call on the one person I knew who would cheer me up when I was down in the dumps. I deleted my Twitter for a few days. My wife was like, "What's wrong? Like, you look like a family member has died." And I'm like, "You don't understand how bad we're doing. My handicapping. I suck at this. I'm terrible." And some truth to that lately, but I need my buddy to pull me out of it. So here we are. Al Studer, the one and only Stu from the Rob and Stu Show. Thank you for being here, my good friend.
I feel bad because when you text me this weekend, it was in the middle of the Michigan State-Iowa game. And I was at that very moment looking up the low bearing weight of rope at Lowe's. You kind of pulled me out of it, and you got to help a friend. You got to get in the hole.
Yeah.
And I'll go in your hole any day of the week.
I appreciate that. You were one of the only few people that I would allow to go in my hole.
Yeah. Because when you're taking fire, you got to jump in the foxhole. That's the hole I was talking about, the foxhole, folks.
Oh, of course.
Great to be on. Thank you for having me on. This is one of my favorite shows, mainly for Robbie DePola and Jim Seaman, but you're on there too, which is nice. It's good. But no, it's a great show. You, after like Stone and some of the other guests you've had on every single week, Colby Dant was really good. Yeah, you're not getting the best. You're getting the relief pitcher. Just called up from AAA folks today, but hopefully,
you know what? You're like when Coach Prime brought he brings these rappers in. He brought DaBaby in to motivate the team last week. You're my DaBaby. You're DaBaby.
I'll take that. Although DaBaby has a couple of murder charges on him, I believe. So,
well, he killed a guy. He killed a guy in self-defense.
Well, allegedly,
and it was legitimate self-defense, from what I understand.
Fair.
I was not there. But you are DaBaby 2.0.
I appreciate it. At least you didn't call me Lil Wayne. Did you see him run out with the Packers on Thursday night?
Oh.
He looked like a Make-A-Wish kid, just compared to those guys running out of the tunnel. But yeah, man, it's so. This week, you know how I love the board every single week. I have a confession about this week. I love the board this week. So I have 73 plays this weekend. Keeping it conservative.
I love it. Well, let's get it started with, I need you to point me in the right direction and tell and confirm my belief for me about a game. And it's a big game. It's a game that I feel strong about, but we probably have a controversial pick in Power Suite. We have a 2-star in Texas A&M against Alabama. We're taking the points. We even called for the outright upset in Power Suite. Are we stupid? Is Bobcat going to text me and laugh at me and call me an idiot for thinking Bama could lose to A&M again, because this happened before? Or are we going to cash in on this one?
Well, I think if you're just as far as the gambling perspective, that game opened up Bama laying 3.5. It crossed 3. It's now at 2. And I would imagine come kickoff, this might be very close to a pick'em. Essentially a pick'em at probably a 1-point game.
Wild to think before the season started. Wild to think.
Yeah, very wild to think. Even the look ahead a couple weeks ago was 7.5, 8.5. Yeah. And now we're down at this point. I think it starts and stops with when you're looking at this Alabama team. I think this is the first time where you can make a strong case that they aren't the most talented team on the field. From looking at the all 22 perspective, I don't know that they're the most talented team on this field. I think Texas A&M matches up with them. I share the belief overall. I like Texas A&M here. They're my dog pick of the week on the Rob and Stu Show. I went with Texas A&M money line as my dog pick. And look, how big is the drop off from Wegman to Max Johnson? I mean, ask yourself that, because I don't know that it's steep. I think in this new Bobby Petrino offense, Texas A&M is actually able to score and able to put up points. This is going to be, I think you're seeing the total bet down. I think both defenses are pretty stout. Bama's O-line is questionable. Texas A&M, do you think they'll be able to contain Jalen Milroe? Because that's really Alabama's offense. You have to ask yourself these questions, and it'll lead you to the right answer at the end of the day. I think the right answer is Texas A&M. I think they contain Milroe. I'm not convinced that he is capable of making those 15, 20-yard throws, those big play through the air passes that Tyler Van Dyke was able to do. And that's really shown to be the key to beat this Texas A&M team. Also, is this Alabama O-line, is this good?
It's bad. That's a bad offensive line.
I mean, you look at the kind of pressure Texas A&M should be able to generate. I don't know. At home, Kyle Field. Yeah, I think this has Aggies written all over it.
Last year, Alabama gave up 22 sacks on the entire season. That's including the bowl game. So you're talking 13 games. This year, they've given up 20 in 5 games. They gave up 18 in the last 4. They're giving up a lot of pressure, and they're not running the balls effectively. And on the flip side, 2 years ago, A&M, they brought in 7 of the top 14 defensive line recruits, and all the talk was about how much Jimbo had $25 million was the rumor. They got an NIL money on that recruiting class or something, and most of it went to that defensive line. And we are seeing the fruits of that labor. Whether it's NIL induced or not, we are seeing a lot of talented players on one defensive line. And the game they lost, the game where they struggled and gave a lot of yards, it wasn't because of the defensive line. They held Miami to 77 rushing yards. They got gashed by Tyler Van Dyke, who is a far better passer than Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is not going to pick them apart like Tyler Van Dyke did.
And there's a worthwhile question of who's playing wideout for Alabama. Devonta Smith isn't in that room. Jalen Waddle's not in that room. J-Mo's not in that room.
We are so used to seeing Alabama churn out first-round pick after first-round pick after first-round pick every year, and and running back. I don't think they're as talented at running back. Jace McClellan's good. Roy Del Williams is good, but we're used to the Brian Robinson, Najee Harris, Damian Harris, and Josh Jacobs. And going all the way back, Derrick Henry and those guys, guys that all ended up playing in the NFL. I don't know that Alabama has those guys at running back either. It's not the same Alabama team we're used to.
Here's my question from a betting perspective. Make the case for Alabama to win. Milroe has to have at least over 100 yards rushing, right?
You're going to have to see something that Alabama hasn't done all year long, whether it's the receivers taking over or Milroe breaking out, running the ball, or them dominating in the trenches. We're going to have to see Alabama do something that they haven't done in the first 5 games. And that's kind of where, I think both of us are going with this. And it's amazing. But to me, this is purely a reputation line. It's like in the FCS. Montana is only a 3.5-point dog to UC Davis. That's a reputational line because Montana is not what they've been the last few years. Alabama's not what they've been for the last decade, and they are still a favorite in this game, and they probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree. Even though they have the greatest college football coach of all time.
I don't debate that. I don't dispute that at all.
As you shouldn't. Former Michigan State Spartan head coach as well.
Speaking of, what's up with the West Virginia shirt?
So I went to Home Field and I just bought a bunch of college shirts to rep. And this was the one I picked for the Big 12.
Okay. I just wondered if there was if you were planning on making a trip to Morgantown.
I am planning. So one of these years when we're able to kidnap you for the college football trip, you're passing on Kentucky, Tennessee, which is disgusting.
I don't want to. It's just a work thing.
But Morgantown's on the list.
Well, and I will say, if we're going to Morgantown, 25 minutes down the road is Waynesburg, Pennsylvania. Lived there for 7 years. We are finding my old apartment. We are breaking in that apartment, and we are going to play beer pong.
Okay, awesome.
So me, my friends will be on board.
Excellent.
It'll be a good time. So we're going to break in. If you live on 252 South Richhill Street in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania,
look out. There's a felony about to be committed on you.
Someone is going to break in your apartment. We're not going to steal anything. We're not going to break anything. We're just going to play beer.
Still technically a felony, so be prepared.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if you just weren't home that day. Just leave us.
Hide your husband.
All right, let's go.
I love planning felonies on the Power Sweep podcast.
Let's go to the next game. We're going to go to the Big Ten, and this is going to start a whole tangent. Michigan, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Michigan dominate Minnesota. Dominate Nebraska last week. Pretty impressive. You warned me about that game. I got to give you a lot of credit. You warned me about that game. We didn't use it as a late phone play. We had it in Power Sweep. Wish we wouldn't have. What's your thoughts on this game against Minnesota? What's your thoughts on Minnesota as a whole? And I don't really want to hear your thoughts on Michigan because I already know. But I have a feeling you're gonna tell me anyways.
Well, it's funny you bring it up, Chris, because this reminds me of when the United States government had to make deals with ISIS and Al Qaeda, transactioning to get hostages, dealing with war criminals. And that's what we're doing today, dealing with war criminals. Minnesota's going to lose this game. Zach Galifianakis, Callis, whoever he is. I don't care to learn his name. I don't care because he is wretched. He is absolutely wretched. Minnesota, all you need to know, if you haven't watched them, Darius Taylor is their offense. Out with a leg injury last week against the Raging Cajuns, who we'll bring up again, I'm sure, in this show. Is he going to play this week? If he is, that's fine. But when you have one way of going, and this is Rutgers adjacent, I think that's a very similar score to what you're going to see. And Harbaugh in prime time, in a rivalry game on NBC, he's going to put up points. I don't think the war criminals are going to have any issue running the ball. I don't think they're going to have any issue throwing the ball. They own an edge at every single position. They're playing with their food right now. They're playing with their food. So You're going to see, and they've been consistent. If you look back at their scores, sans the Nebraska game, I don't know.
I think the same exact score every game.
It's almost the same exact score every single game, and they're winning by about 20 points.
The yardage is almost the same every game. Yeah, it's kind of impressive how consistent they are.
Yeah, they're extremely consistent. I mean, they're playing Little Sisters of the Poor. So big ups to them. I guess
it's wild. They will not play. I mean, possibly a team with a winning record until they get to Penn State.
You're familiar with them, if you're familiar with their history, this is going back to the days of Bo Schembachler. It was scheduled 3 Powder Puffs. In fact, all the Powder Puff girls from the cartoon. You're going to play them. And then the Big Ten, you get the weaklings of the Big Ten. You're, no offense, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan State, for the most part, Northwestern, etc. And then you have one game. You have one game. Unless you trip up at Purdue or at Iowa or against Penn State or Wisconsin, which will happen inevitably once every year or two. And then you lose to Ohio State. That's been their plan for like the last 30 years. This is
next year, because I'm looking at their 2024 schedule. Holy crap. They play Ohio State, USC, Texas, UCLA, Wisconsin. The rest of it's pretty manageable. But I mean, that's a huge step above what this schedule is. This schedule is atrocious.
If you think
it's schedule look hard.
If you think it's a foregone conclusion that Jim Harbaugh will be coaching next year, good luck.
Well, I have no opinion on that. I have no thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going in your words, not mine. War criminals minus, I believe it's what 19, 18?
19. I've seen 19, 20. I think this is a pretty consistent play.
Yeah. What do we have earlier?
I saw it at 20 yesterday. I don't know who the hell's buying it down to 19, but
yeah, you might be right. I think it is 20. Of course I can't find it. I don't feel like looking online. Yeah, 20.
Yeah, there's a
couple 19 and a halfs out there earlier today. Actually, we'll call 19 and a half. There are some 19s out there. There's a bunch of 19s.
I think this could vary.
19 and a half.
Final score prediction, 35-13.
Sounds good. And it was our early bird play, which has done very well this year. 4-1 on the year on an early bird. Last play, I need a total out of you. I need one total.
All right.
With one.
I'm gonna hit you because I love this show and you're a friend. I'm gonna hit you with my game of the year. Now 2-0 game of the years. Okay.
That's
Albany Great Danes.
No, I'd like
Washington Huskies.
We put out at North Coast one game of the year. Stu does a game of the year every couple of weeks. So
well, no, you can have multiple game of the years. It's okay. Washington Huskies, Albany Great Danes. I'm a dog lover, but I'm going away from that this week. Totals play of the century. That's what I'm calling this. If it doesn't hit, folks, the rest of my plays, not North Coast, my plays, rest of my plays this year, free. Absolutely free, 100%. I love the over Texas State, the Bobcats, ULL, Raging Cajuns, over 69, favorite number, favorite position. And let me tell you what, TJ Finley, 72% completion rate. They're running the ball, averaging, their starting running back, who I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, 9.8 yards a carry. I mean, get out of here. You look at ULL, Chris, a nice running quarterback.
His name isn't that hard to pronounce. Ishmael Mahdi?
I don't know these. I don't know these names. I'm not a guy that's well read or or a world traveler like yourself. But Mahdi, yes, over 9 yards a carry. You look at ULL, Chris, and their complementary running backs. This is an explosive running game. Now, Chris, I will have to warn you, is a turnover machine, but ULL is an explosive offense. Texas State's an explosive offense. Then diagram it. What do they have in common? Both their defenses are eights. They are horrific. I think this is points, fireworks. And like you always say, Jim Seaman always says, Robbie DePola always says, life's too short to bet the under. So let's go over. Fireworks, 4th of July is happening this weekend, folks. And it's Texas State ULL.
God, you wouldn't.
I love the over.
Buy one of those T-shirts that says that, and I hate that saying, but I might have to buy one of those T-shirts just for you.
You may have to buy it.
You need to start some swag for the Rob and Stu Show. I want your face on my chest.
So my first idea is to get a picture of Rob from the crawfish boil earlier this year and just have fat slob underneath it. That's my initial.
Not that bad.
Would you buy that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Maybe some experiences.
I definitely think have like a Rob and Stu Show. Maybe we could have a Rob and Stu Show in the front, Power Sweep podcast on the back. Me, Jim, and Robbie.
That would be some sort of shirt. You know what? We could offer up an experience. You could sit down with Robbie DePola and the Bobcat and watch an Alabama game. How great would that be?
Just Bobcat would make that an interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean the last Alabama game I watched with him, he actually sprained his MCL because he kicked a table.
Yeah,
it's pretty electric. But yeah, hopefully these picks come in and I actually look smart. But Rob and Stu Show every Wednesday in the morning. The show drops CVDs on it. Check us out, Pulse Sports Network, and yeah,
shout out JC Shelton.
Yeah, well, when you're proposing to your fiance at Olive Garden, I mean, come on now. You want to talk about salt of the earth people. That's him.
Yeah, I miss him. I'll have to send him a polite text message telling him we miss him.
Can I ask a question? I want to get Jim's thoughts on a game, if at all possible. Ohio.
He's in the distance. He's around. Ohio what?
Ohio and Kent State. I want to bet Ohio. I'm a Bobcat lover. But that number's not moving. Jim, what do I do?
Well, I think that if you bet Ohio against Kent State, wasn't that last week's game?
No,
it's this week.
No, that's this week.
Okay.
Yeah, last week was Miami and Kent.
Okay, that's where I'm. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Jim's working hard back there.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio is looking good. Kent State, I mean, they have 4 starters back on defense. That's all they had coming back. They've looked a little better, almost defensively at times. Except, like when they play Fresno and UCF. Like I said, the UCF is kind of how I expected them. And then when they held Arkansas to 28, Miami of Ohio, they held to 23. And what's the line you're getting right now?
27. I think it's been hemming and hawing between 26, 27.
I mean, Ohio has covered. I think it's 9 straight games.
9 straight
MAC
games.
games.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can go wrong. And once again, this is not last year. Last year they lost to Kent State, but they covered because they were the dog. So after the difference between a year when Kent State was favored over Ohio, and now they're a 27-point dog because basically Kent State lost their team. It's almost like Colorado in reverse. Everybody left.
Well, they all went
Kent
to Colorado.
Yeah, they all went to Colorado.
Well, right.
And a coaching staff.
Well, that's why I bring it up. But so no, it seems like a good play to me as a MAC person. Kent State, they're getting a little better. They're showing some things. I know Chris and I talked about they seem to try to slow up games at times. So it is a lot of points, but Ohio's been doing very well. I think Jalen Jefferson, their wide receiver for Ohio, is having surgery, so he's actually out for the year. But he only had 8 catches this year. He's been kind of banged up, and so they're kind of putting him off to the side, trying to bring him back for next year. So it's not that big of a hit, but if people see that, it's not that big of a hit this year. And no, Ohio's been doing well. Yeah, I'll go with you on that.
Yeah, we do have a 3-star power sweep on it. So go Bobcats.
Beautiful. Go Bobcats.
No, Robbie will agree. Robbie is a Bobcat.
Let me and I'm glad you brought him up as we're winding down here. Last time I was on last year, I made a proclamation that Robbie was going to have a great week. And I was channeling my inner thoughts on this, and unfortunately I came up with the same answer every single time. You and Robbie are going to have horrible weeks, and that's going to last for the rest of the season because Jim is that grizzly bear that woke up from hibernation. He is angry. He has a nice demeanor about him. He looks like a teddy bear, but he is about to rip your faces off.
Can't Jim just go like 3-0 every week, and me and Robbie can go 2-1 and finish way behind him?
Jim's going to go 3-0 for quite a few weeks in a row.
I hope so. I would love that.
Learn to love it because it's happening.
Good with it.
No shot for the rest of you.
I'm good with it.
Thanks, Stu.
Yeah, it shows
Jim.
faith in Jim Seaman. I appreciate it. All right, Stu. I appreciate you you spending so much time. We've spent way more time than we usually do with the guests because I have so much fun with you. So I will bring Robbie and Jim here.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen. Thank you for having me as always, brother.
All right, Stu. Definitely listen to the Rob and Stu Show on Wednesdays. Thanks again, buddy.
See you, brother.
I am completely exhausted from that conversation with my best buddy in the entire world, Stu.
Hey, I thought we were your best buddies in the entire world.
We're number 2 and 3, apparently.
It's a tie.
Wow, we've dropped this week. Wow.
You know what?
And then his wife's in there probably. I bet you she's in the top 10.
I'd hope.
Top 50. She's top 50.
All right. He doesn't listen to the podcast.
Speaking. Anyways, you know what? It was such a bad week. We probably hate each other. So, podcast did not do great last week. But the saving grace, Jim, winning week last week on the podcast, 2-1.
And I won a total.
Winning play on Oregon, winning play on his total, brings his record to 5-10 on the year. Robbie and myself.
Start back.
Robbie goes 1-2 last week, so a little better than me. He's now 6-9, and I go 0-3 after doing pretty good the previous couple weeks. I completely crap myself. Not even close on any of them. Cal, not even close. Florida, absolutely abysmal. Pitt versus Virginia Tech under 39.5 was nearly over at halftime. So sorry if anyone actually used my plays. That wasn't what I like to do. Robbie did have a winning play on Air Force. That was an easy winner. Kansas looked good for a little while, and then we didn't realize Jalen Daniels wasn't going to play. So
he was a late scratch on Saturday morning. So
should be an asterisk on that play, Robbie. And then
can that count as like a half-point loss?
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about the Marshall game because I'm.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was ugly.
Yeah, there's no reason. Now the total was probably doomed either way, but there's no reason we didn't win that side. It was ridiculous. All right,
that was
Jim,
funny.
you're first since you had the best record last week. And I think you were going to use a stalwart of ours on this podcast and over the last couple of years as late play.
Yeah, I'm going back with Notre Dame. Notre Dame with their miracle cover last week, with the trying to set up the field goal, running into the line and running for a touchdown, and then going for the 2 points and getting it. So, sometimes we've had a lot of tough breaks. That was a break that went our way. So thank you to Notre Dame. And I'm going to go back to them because once again, they're playing Louisville, but they're only a 6.5-point favorite. It's not even a touchdown. And I was like, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Notre Dame's covered 10 straight versus ACC foes. And they are playing. This will be, I think you pointed this out the other day, Chris. Yeah, there you go. If I can remember your name. It's that old age setting in, senility. But they just played Ohio State, who is undefeated and ranked. They played Duke, who is undefeated and ranked. They play Louisville, who is undefeated and they just got ranked. And they'll be playing USC, who probably next week will be undefeated and ranked. And in some ways, I think that actually helps them that Louisville's undefeated and ranked, because otherwise they'd have USC on deck and be looking forward to it, maybe a little bit past Louisville, but they have that loss to Ohio State, so they can't afford another loss. When they beat Duke last week, they moved up one place in the AP polls up to number 10, and they moved up 2 places in the coaches' polls. So their head coach can point out to them, hey, look, we're still in this. We win these big games. It's a good thing we have these big games on the schedule, because if we win them all, we're going to be right back into the thick of things. We had that, late loss to Ohio State. That could actually even be a bonus towards the end there. So he's got them believing and ready to play. Both have played NC State. Notre Dame was -5 versus NC State on the road. They beat them 45-24, the 456 to 344 yard edge. Now, I will admit they were only up 24-17, and then got 2 touchdowns off interceptions, and then a stopped on down set up a 3rd touchdown before NC State answered with a late touchdown. Louisville just played NC State, only beat them 13-10 with a 306 to 201 yard edge. They actually trailed 10-0 at halftime and got the game-winning field goal with 5:32 left. So, even when you're looking at that, last week, Notre Dame was up 13-0 in that game over Duke, and they, let them back in. And that also helps here, because I think the coach can also use that as a teaching moment and say, hey, we got to keep the foot on their necks, and we've got to, foot on the gas, keep going with this. And I just think that it's too small of a line. I think Notre Dame has the talent. Louisville, in their own way, I mean, them being, I want to say undefeated, almost, I don't want to say hurts them in this game, but Notre Dame's not going to look past them. But, their wins are over Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, Boston College, and NC State. Not the greatest, schedule there.
Played anybody. They haven't played anybody. Let's be honest. They haven't played anybody.
Yeah, they haven't played anybody. They're coming in. They're ranked. And this is the first week they're ranked. A lot of teams do not do well the first week they are ranked, because they start reading the press clippings. And, that used to be something that we used to look at a lot, especially teams that aren't usually ranked. The first week that they get ranked is usually not too good for them. So all those signs are pointing to Notre Dame, and that's, like I said, less than a touchdown. I think it's cheap.
All right, I completely agree. We mentioned approaching this game with caution, but I am liking Notre Dame. more as the week goes, especially as long as it stays under a touchdown. Robbie, going back to the Big 12, who do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a team I actually used last week, and you already mentioned them here on the podcast to begin with. I'm going to go back to Kansas. This week they're at home. They're facing Central Florida. As I did mention before, Kansas did not find out till literally they were leaving the team hotel to go onto the buses to head over to the stadium that Jalen Daniels was not playing. I guess he aggravated his back. They're not really saying what exactly happened. They're just saying he woke up on Saturday and it wasn't feeling right, so they decided to rest him. Maybe with a week off, he plays. Kansas does have the luxury, though. They do have a veteran quarterback in Jason Bean as their backup, who's started several games both here and prior to here at North Texas. So he has plenty of experience. He isn't as dynamic as Daniels, but he can run. He's a good passer. He's hitting 63%. He's got a 3.0 ratio this season. And they're facing a UCF team that's I don't know if they're still stunned from what happened last week when they were up 35-7 in the second half against Baylor, and it looked like Central Florida had the game in hand. And then Baylor gets a field goal late third quarter. They're still down 35-10, and all of a sudden Baylor makes this miraculous comeback. They did get a 72-yard fumble return for a touchdown that helped them, but ultimately UCF loses 36-35 at home in a game they were up by 4 touchdowns late in the third quarter. Very surprising. Not sure how they're going to respond off that. They're very mum's the word on their starting quarterback, Plumlee. He's missed the last 3 games. Timmy McClain has come in. He's hitting 61% as a 7.2 ratio, so he's playing well. Just not as dynamic as Plumlee, especially running the ball. So I wonder how UCF's going to fare there. Kansas is on a 6-0 straight up and ATS run at home. Their home stadium is becoming a very tough place to play. They're selling the place out. The crowd is getting into the games. They're loud. They're becoming a factor when you didn't think even a year ago that would be the case at a Kansas football game. And no matter who plays at quarterback, I think Kansas will do all right. UCF's defense has struggled in their 2 Big 12 games. They gave up 536 at Kansas State and then 446 last week. Kansas's defense did get beat up pretty bad last week. They gave up 661 to Texas, but that Texas team is a completely different team than this Central Florida team they're playing. Before that, Kansas defense looked pretty well. They were forcing turnovers, scoring touchdowns, and I think back at home in front of their home crowd, and the line's only 2 here. So basically all you're asking Kansas to do is win the game by a field goal or more. I think they can easily do that. I do think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I think both teams can score the ball a little bit here, but with Kansas only a slight favorite in this game, I mean, I think they can win the game by 7 to 10 points. I mean, I see the game like 38-31, like 41-31, something like that. I think there might be a lot of points in this game, but I think Kansas does have the slightly better defense. And I think at home with their offense, with their streak at home, I think that's going to continue. So I'll take Kansas -2.
All right, I'm going to go to the ACC, and I'm going to jump on a team that's undefeated right now and playing good football. It has North Carolina coming off a bye. They are playing Syracuse at home, laying 8.5 points. Tar Heels, they've typical offense with Drake May, but the big improvement for them is defensively. That they held South Carolina to 351 yards in the opener, held them to -2 rushing yards because of the 9 sacks they had against South Carolina that game. The next week they had a bit of a letdown spot against App State, a team they've traditionally had troubles with. It's an in-state game, and App State gets up for this game. North Carolina, not so much. North Carolina pulled it out, but then the next 2 games really where they hung their hat, beat Minnesota by 18 at home with a 216-yard edge, and they beat Pitt by 17 on the road. Tar Heels defensively seem a lot better. Last year, they gave up 437 yards a game. This year, they're only giving up 363 yards a game. Yards per carry allowed on the ground is down from 4.5 to 3.7. Completion percentage is down from 66% to 56%. So across the board, they're doing everything better defensively on top of a still pretty potent offense. I'd still like to see their receivers step up a little more, but I think this North Carolina team, they have a great shot to go into next week against Miami, still undefeated in what will be a showdown. And the winner of that game has the inside track to probably play in the ACC title game against, well, likely end up being Florida State. On the opposite end, Syracuse just lost to Clemson by 17 at home. Their previous 4 games, which they won each game, they didn't play a single team with a winning record right now. Colgate, Western Michigan, Purdue, and Army. The wins aren't great. 3 of those were in the formerly known as the Carrier Dome. I do like Garrett Schrader, but he's injury prone, so you could possibly knock him out of the game because he has had those troubles in the past. And they've used him a lot running out of the backfield, and he is a physical runner, but I don't think they'll be able to use him like that against North Carolina. And Syracuse's big offensive threat coming into the season was Rondé Gadsden. He's out for the year. Really changes the dynamic of that passing game. And I think that you have a big edge at quarterback with North Carolina and Drake May, probably going to be a first-round pick next year. So I will take the Tar Heels minus 8.5. We should have used them, probably should have been stronger on them a couple weeks ago against Minnesota. I wish I'd have pushed for that play a little harder at the time. But I definitely think the Tar Heels will get the win here. And I think it'll be by double digits. We had in Power Sweep by 14. So nice little lean on North Carolina here. All right, round 2, Jim. We need an underdog. Do you have one for us?
I have an underdog, and I'm going out to the West Coast here, and I'm going to take Cal plus 9.5 over Oregon State. Oregon State comes in ranked number 15, but they're just 2-8 as an away favorite, and in fact, their only loss this year was in a road game. They were a favorite over Washington State, and they lost that outright. Cal, on the other hand, is 11-4 as a home dog. Their only games so far where they've been a home dog this year, they lost 14-10 to Auburn as a 6-point dog, so that was another cover there. And as I said, Oregon State's off that huge win over number 10 Utah. But they only had a 258 to 198 yard edge, and that included a 45-yard touchdown run, kind of breakaway there that kind of sealed the game for them. They're up to number 15. Cal's 2 losses this year are the one I mentioned with Auburn, and then also to number 8 Washington. But that was on the road in Washington, and the home team in this series has won 3 straight. That includes 2 outright upsets, including the last time here when Cal is a 1.5-point dog, won 39-25. I think Oregon State most likely has a little bit of a hangover here. They have UCLA on deck. So I don't want to say that they're going to look past Cal, but there's a chance of it because, once again, you just beat a top 10 team and, the fans rush the field and you kind of feel that. And then you're going into Cal. Cal's already got 2 losses, but Cal is, as a home dog, very good. And when you're given almost 10 points, plus 9.5, well over a touchdown, I think Cal keeps it in there. And they've got a shot here. They could pull the outright upset.
I definitely agree with you. Justin Wilcox has done a great job as an underdog. Cal looks like, it didn't work out for me last week with Cal, but they were a favorite last week, and they play way, way better in this role. So
it's kind of like Eastern Michigan. If they're a dog, you look at the game. If they're a favorite, you don't so much.
Yeah, I was hoping Arizona State's injuries would take a toll on them last week, and it didn't happen. Robbie, Can you follow up Jim's dog with a dog of your own?
I can and I will. I'm gonna go. Did you bring Lux in, Chris?
No, you know what? He is going to start handicapping though, because I can't pick winners. So I'm going to.
He might be. Yeah,
All right, Chris.
Tried that one
let
time.
him
It didn't
do it.
work, but I'm going to let my dog try again. He's a little older and more mature now. You know, he was only 2 last year, so I'm thinking he's like
as mature as you.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, yeah, he might be ready. He might be ready. Bring him on the North Coast team.
No, Chris, we're not getting that way.
Anyways, back to my underdog. I was actually talking with one of our regular customers, Jeff Duda. Shout out to Jeff. Like talking to him here. He gave me a piece of advice this week. He said, look at some underdogs. He said, look at the dogs. So I did that, and I found a game that I think I like, and hopefully this one works out. We're gonna go, like I said, back to the Big 12, and TCU's playing Iowa State, and Iowa State's the home team here. And if you know anything about Iowa State at home, you know they've been historically good as a home dog under Matt Campbell. In fact, they're on a 10-5-1 ATS run as a home dog in the Big 12 under Campbell, and they're a 6.5-point dog right now. Really hoping that that creeps up to 7, maybe even by the half point up to 7, just in case. But I do like the Cyclones here. They are just 2-3 on the season, but their offense has looked a little better the last couple weeks. The first 3 weeks of the season, they only put up 250, 290, and 271. The past 2 weeks, they put up 422 on Oklahoma State, and last week they were in Norman to face the Sooners. They put up 352. That game did kind of get away from them. They lost 50-20, but a couple weeks ago at home against a fairly good team coached by Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State, they put up 34 points. Freshman quarterback Rocco Beck looked good. That was by far his best game a couple weeks ago. He was 27 of 38 for 334 and 3 touchdowns here. And TCU is off a home loss to West Virginia. This is their second loss of the season. So obviously their hopes of getting back to a national championship or even a Big 12 title game not completely have disappeared, but not looking like they're going to repeat last year's magical run that they had. And I'm really wondering what to make of this TCU team. They lose to Colorado that first week. They beat an FCS team pretty bad. They beat a pretty bad Houston team. And then their best game of the season, which we unfortunately went against them, was at home against SMU a couple weeks ago. I'm really looking for I really haven't seen TCU play all that well outside of that one game against SMU. I mean, they struggled last week. They missed 3 field goals, had 2 field goals blocked. So that makes me wonder if they get down into a tough situation, close situation, are they going to go for it instead of putting their kicker out there who missed 3 field goals last week? Iowa State has given up 523 and 409 the last 2 weeks, but those are against 2 teams with much better offenses, and TCU's put up some numbers, but again, they've faced the likes of SMU, Houston, Nichols, Colorado, West Virginia. So they've looked good at times, just I think been inconsistent, and I think the Cyclones have a better defense than what they've shown the last couple of weeks. And at home, it's a night game. That stadium can be a pretty intimidating place to play at night. And I think the Cyclones at home, they're looking to turn their season around, keep their season afloat, get back to 500. Matt Campbell really needs to get this team to a bowl after last year's disappointing 4-8 season. They had the whole gambling scandal to begin the season, kind of put a black cloud over the program, looking to turn things around. I mean, I really do think there's a shot they could pull the outright upset, but getting the 6.5, maybe even buy it up to 7, I think is a pretty good play. So I'll take the Cyclones plus the 6.5 here.
Yeah, you gotta like Matt Campbell as an underdog at home, and both him and
he's always been best in.
Yeah, him and Justin Wilcox both thrive in those roles. So good calls on the underdogs, guys. I don't have an underdog this week. I'm gonna roll with a military academy. Shout out Navy and all the military academies, all the veterans. Going Navy here, -6 against North Texas. You know, Navy's 1-3, and their only win is against Wagner. But look at who they lost to. They got blown out in their opener against Notre Dame. They didn't match up well in that game. First game with a new head coach and all. Then they lose. To Memphis by 4 points. That's a good loss. Memphis is a pretty good football team. Outgained them in the game. Really played them tough. It was tied at halftime. Then they lose to South Florida, which at the time we were like, geez, that's not a good looking loss. But we've really taken a hard look at South Florida and realized that South Florida is a lot better than we thought they were going to be coming in. Alex Golesh is a guy I'm a big fan of, the head coach of Tennessee, the former offensive coordinator of Tennessee. He's taken that system to South Florida. Remember, South Florida only lost to Alabama by 14 points. Played Alabama really tough. And South Florida, I dare you to find a game where they've played poorly on their schedule so far. So that's a decent football team. Navy has, as granted, they're not running that traditional triple option, but it's still a run primary option attack. They've thrown 56 pass attempts this year and attempted 228 rushes. I'm sorry, 190 rush attempts. So way still a running team, and that's something that North Texas does not defend. This is a very poor North Texas defense. They have given up 501 yards a game, 241 yards a game on the ground, 5.9 yards a carry. They have just 4 sacks on the season. So not a very good not a very good defense, not a very good run D. They're actually allowing their opponents to put up 154 yards per game more than they average. That's last in the country. So this might be the worst defense in the country. Navy is going to keep North Texas's offense, which is pretty good, off the field by running the ball. I think Navy -6. Ty Lavatai, the whole Navy option is going to give North Texas fits, and I think it will open up some passing for Navy because of the play action that they run pretty well when their running game is working potently. So and looking at who North Texas has played, they have a 7-point loss at FIU. That's a bad football team. They only beat Abilene Christian by 14 last week, gave up 31 points in the game, were blown out by Cal 50-21, and barely beat Louisiana Tech, who's okay. That was a little bit of a surprising performance. But, so I think Navy rolls in this one. They're laying 6. Before we get to our totals, guys, I just wanted to say thank you to all the customers that have stuck around. We have some great customers out there, and we don't blame you guys when you call and let us know when we're doing poorly and your disapproval. I don't blame you guys. So I don't have a problem with that at all. If you're not a customer and you do that, though, and you're not paying customer, that kind of frustrates us. So for our buddy Sassy Jim out there, keep calling if you want. That's okay. We can handle it. We get it. I do have a rescue animal, so I'm doing my part. That's his thing. I open up an animal rescue. Like I have enough money to rescue 1 million animals. I have one. That's good for me. So, all right. Thoughts?
You've said it all, Chris.
It's a tangent, I know. Yes, Sassy Jim and Silly Billy, you guys have a good time. Hope you enjoy the rest of football season. Jim, what total are you going to lead off with?
Well, I'm going to go for 2 in a row on my totals and hopefully turn this season around here. And I'm going to go with Western Michigan and Mississippi State over 56.5. It's 56.5 here on Wednesday. I really expect this total to go up, but if you listen to this early, take advantage of it. When you look at these two teams, both have gone 3 straight overs. Mississippi State in their first 2 games that didn't go over the totals, and those were by less than 5 points. Each game they scored 55 points, combined 55 points. Western Michigan, as I said, has gone 3 straight overs, and their first 2 games were 52 and 55 points. Their last 2 games are 80 and 66 points. Western Michigan has found their offense. They're averaging while they're only averaging 25 points per game on the season, they have put up 73 the last 2 weeks. Now, those were in MAC play, and I know Mississippi State's not a MAC team, but still, when you look at Mississippi State this year, they are giving up 29 or 30 points per game, putting up 28. They've shown that they can put up some offense. They put up 48 points versus Southeastern Louisiana. They put up 31 versus Arizona, and they put up 30 versus South Carolina. The two teams that they didn't do well, they put up 14 versus LSU and 17 versus Alabama. Both those teams are ranked. So they do have an offense that can make an appearance here. Western Michigan, they allowed 41 points to Iowa. Yes, Iowa scored 41 points on them. If Iowa can put up 41 points, I think Mississippi State can put up 41 points here.
I think if Iowa can score 41 points, we could put together a team in North Coast that might be able to score 30 on you.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that. But the other thing is even against Iowa's great defense, Western Michigan did get 10 points up there, which, when you look at, is pretty decent. Mississippi State, as I said, they're allowing 30 points per game. Mississippi State has our number 130 pass efficiency defense, which is the lowest among all Power 5 schools. Western Michigan, they are putting up 384 yards of offense, but they're giving up 405 yards on defense, which is 68 yards above what opponents usually have their average, which is number 128 in the FBS. So I think what you have here is a combination of two teams who have good offenses, not necessarily the greatest defenses. Western Michigan's going to be able to put some points on the scoreboard. Mississippi State should be able to put up possibly their highest total this year, which was 48. And with the total being just 56 and a half, I think that's low. I was shocked when I saw it. And like I said, I think this could climb up as the week goes on. But, I really like it.
And I really like you, Jim. And I think you are underestimating the North Coast ability. We got some athletes here, man. Are you kidding me? Come on, Robbie would be a great tight end. How tall are you, Robbie? Like 6'11"?
I wish 6'4".
Yeah, see, we got. I'll tell you what. I'll take Robbie to a bar. Ain't no one messing with us. All right, and Jim's got that bouncer look to him.
Jim would be a good left tackle.
Stand out in the front of the building. I mean, yeah, you'd be a great lead blocker, Jim. I'm putting you a fullback.
Okay.
And you almost knocked me over that one day.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. All right. Robbie, where are you going for your total?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the Sun Belt, and one of the teams I actually used on the under last week, I'm going to go back to a game involving them. Old Dominion at Southern Miss over 57.5. Southern Miss is a team 1-4 on the season, lost 4 straight. Their offense, though, has played better. Their first 2 Sun Belt games, they put up 449 and 510 the last 2 weeks, 37 and 36 points in those games. But their defense, however, has allowed 44 points and 50 points the last 2 weeks to Arkansas State and Texas State, both teams that can move the ball a little bit or showing capability to move the ball. So, I mean, you got a team here they're putting up in the high 30s. They're giving up mid to high 40s. It seems like a team that's going to score a lot, but also give up a lot. Old Dominion surprised the heck out of us, like Chris said. They ran for 339. They surprised us with a very highly rated JUCO running back, Kadarius Callaway, ran for over 200 yards last week. Southern Miss has given up almost 200 yards on the ground per game this season, so I would expect Old Dominion to have similar success. Not not 339 yards and 10.9 YPC, but I would still expect him to have a pretty good day running the ball. Old Dominion doesn't have the best quarterback room right now. They're only hitting about 54% combined between the two of Grant Wilson and Jack Shields. However, Southern Miss just has the number 100 pass defense. So if there is going to be a week where Old Dominion kind of gets their passing game going a little bit, might be this week. On the other hand, Old Dominion just has the number 114 pass defense, so I would expect Southern Miss to be able to throw the ball as well. They've also gotten Frank Gore back on track the last couple of weeks. He had failed to even top 40 yards in their first 3 games on the ground, and he's topped over 120 the last 2. So, again, I expect this to be a high-scoring game. Total right now is only 57.5. I think both teams get into the 30s here. I see like a 37 to 31 type game, which would put that about 10 points over. So I really do think this game's going to be higher scoring. So give me Southern Miss, Old Dominion over 57.5.
Word. I like it. Yeah, the Southern Miss seems like they're getting their offense moving. Frank Gore's played a lot better the last couple of weeks, so especially last week against Texas State. And Old Dominion, they burned us with those big runs last week.
Yeah, 4 big runs.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go to a Old Faithful for me, and that is when in doubt, you're looking for a total, Georgia unders. You always have a shot with this defense. Total is 48 this week against Kentucky. Last week, Georgia really got burned with Auburn's RPOs and Peyton Thorne keeping the ball. If there's one thing that Kentucky has no threat of, it's the quarterback run. Devin Leary is not a running quarterback. As a matter of fact, he's negative rushing yards on the season. They've only given up 4 sacks, so he's not far negative, but he has hardly any positive runs. Kentucky defensively is only giving up 297 yards a game. They held Florida 313 last week. They're allowing 76 rushing yards a game, 2.5 yards a carry. Georgia is allowing 287 yards a game. Like I said, they were gashed on the ground last week against Auburn, but the previous 3 games on the ground, they gave up 77, 53, and 86. Kentucky's big blue wall offensive line did finally show some signs of life last week against Florida. They ran for 329 yards. Ray Davis had over 200 at halftime, finished with 280. They're not going to do that against Georgia's defense. Georgia's defense holding opponents 75 yards per game below their average. 3 of their first 4 foes were held to a season low. Last year's meeting, 16-6. The year before that, 30-13 in the game. We had our game of I think it was the game of the month or game of the year.
Yeah, it was one of the two.
It was game of the month. Game of the month total winner. We won on the under 30, under 44.5, finished 30-13. Year before that, 14-3. Year before that, 21-0. So 4 straight unders in this series, and 3 of them didn't even top 22 points. I think that could see a somewhat similar story here. Georgia's offense hasn't looked full gear yet. Carson Beck looks decent. He's completing a high percentage, but they're not running the ball as effectively as they have in the past. Only 148 rushing yards a game. Their yards per carry is down from 5.5 to 4.4. But the defense is still there, so you got to trust that. You've got to trust Kentucky's got the defense to keep this game lower scoring. I think under 48 is a great number, and I just don't see Kentucky scoring a lot. So, yeah, under 48 sounds like the play. All right. I want to thank my buddy Al Studer, for joining, and remind everyone to listen to the Rob and Stu Show on YouTube. You will see my ugly face on that show every week. Posts on Wednesday morning usually, so definitely check that out, the Rob and Stu Show. You'll also see the beautiful musings of Bobcat occasionally, JC Shelton from UGA Wire, and a couple other people occasionally join, and of course Rob and Stu, who do a great job, and appreciate them always having me on. In honor of them, this week's podcast code will be Rob and Stu. ROBANDSTU. That's ROBANDSTU is the podcast code. $10 off Power Sweep for the rest of the season, or $10 off next year if you want to sign up early. Or also you can get $10 off any late phone package. ncsports.com or 1-800-654-3448. That's $10 off any late phone package, price on the back of Power Sweep, or $10 off Power Sweep for the rest of the year next year. Jim, any parting words?
Just hoping for another winning week here on the podcast. I think we're all going to turn it around, especially you, Chris, because last week was, it happens, but I'm sure you're going to do much better this week.
Yeah, I actually deleted my Twitter for a couple days because I was so angry.
It's all right.
It was a bad week.
It was, and it's okay to be angry, but we're going to continue on, and we're not going to let it stop us. We've been doing this for a while, and we'll get things fixed. And just everybody out there, take care and stay safe.
Robbie, anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, just we appreciate you guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in every week, and let's hit some bets.
Thanks. Sassy Jim, you can suck it.